Hello and welcome. My name is Lexi, and today we're going to be taking a look at the new Cle de Peau eyeshadow quads. And I did a live as soon as I got these where we went through, we swatched them, we did a lot of comparisons on that. So if you haven't seen that yet, I'll leave that linked down below. But if you're looking for comparisons to Dior shadows, I've got Dior in there. I've got a whole lot. So today we're going to do a few more comparisons that people have requested. So you have Guerlain. I received the new YSL quads, so I'm going to be swatching those. And also some more Chanel palettes. So those will be the primary comparisons today. So we're also going to do eye swatches. So I have swatched all of the shadows individually on my eyes so you can see what they look like. And let's start off by talking just a little bit about the product. So when you purchase this, you can purchase just the refill if you'd like, and that's how this will come. So you'll get this plastic. This is heavy duty plastic, and you can totally use this permanently. You don't have to buy a case. This is the actual refill. It is plastic packaging, and you can see we have like kind of this, it's got like a ledge essentially in here. So this will click in. So the two longer sides have raised edges on the top and the bottom of both of those, and the smaller sides are smooth, and you can just clip them in. So the case retails for $35, and in that case, this is what the case looks like. So you have the case. It does come with a piece of plastic here over the mirror, and then you get two utensils in here. Now to put this in, you can easily put this in and take it out because of this little like ledge here. So you can just use your finger to leverage that out. And then when you put it in, I like to hold the spot in the middle, and you can just snap that in. So make sure you hear that snap. Now, as for the utensils, we have a dual-ended foam tip applicator on one side, brush on the other, and then the other side we have a dual-ended foam tip applicator where we've got one larger side and one skinnier side. The white and the black one here are the same. So we do have one brush there. So you'll get that with the case. So the refills retail for $75 US. The cases for $35 US. If you buy them all together, it's $110. There's no discount for purchasing them together. And when you go to your cart then on the Cle de Peau website, you'll see that they actually show up separately. Now, at this current time, these quads are exclusive to Cle de Peau, but they will be available at other retailers in just a couple of weeks. So around August 1st, I don't know the exact date. But right now you can purchase them from the Cle de Peau website. If you are purchasing cases, there is a limit of 3 that you can purchase online at one time, and then you have to break it up into separate orders. Or if you call in, you could amend that. So I did break mine into separate orders. I picked up 7 of the quads. So I have 6 cases, and then I did pick one up just as a refill, and I'll get the case at a later date. So let's take a look at the eye swatches while I talk a little bit about the product itself. These quads have 6 grams of product. They have a 2-year shelf life, and they are made in Japan. As we know, Cle de Peau is part of the Shiseido family, and these are definitely a very luxe shadow. You can feel it. As soon as you touch it, you can tell that this is really an elevated formula. Now, we do have 3 traditional eyeshadows, and then the bottom left-hand corner of each of the quads is actually what they call a primer shade. Does it have to be used as a primer? No, it does not. You can use this on top of your eyeshadow. You can use it as an eyeshadow. Really what it is a cream to powder formula. So you touch it, it's definitely going to have a cream consistency, but when you put that on your lid, it really dries down to a powder finish, and it gives you this really soft pearlescent finish. So I have used it in today's look as a brow highlight primer. So I put it all over the eye before the shadows, all the way up to the brow, and you get that beautiful like brow highlight. But then I also used it to tap it on top of the shadows, kind of like in the center for that like halo effect a little bit. And I also used it for the inner corner highlight. So this is essentially just replacing those topper shades that you get in so many quartets. So I have seen some people, you know, wonder if it's worth getting because it's really a trio of eyeshadows. I wouldn't say that. I would say it actually is a true quartet. It's just that that bottom left-hand shade is always going to be a different formula. And so they're calling it a primer, but it does not have to be used as a primer. It works just as well in other applications. And as a matter of fact, all of the shadows perform just as well with or without that product underneath. So I have worn them for a maximum of 12 hours at this point. And by the 12-hour mark, I didn't have any creasing. However, I did notice that it was starting to look a little worn. Like, it didn't look fresh. You could tell I'd had it on for a while. If I had it on for another hour, I probably would have seen creasing at that point, just faint creasing. But by the 12-hour mark, you know, it was still good. And so I do have a wear test that I will show you in a little bit with a 9-hour check-in. And you can see at 9 hours, it's still going strong. It still looks freshly applied. It's really a beautiful formula. So I would have to say, you know, with or without the primer shade underneath, that's the performance I've received from these shadows so far. So I am very impressed. So I've been testing these out for a few days and I've tried a few different things. I've put different primers such as the Vizier eye primer underneath. I've used this as a primer. I've used the shadows without. And I would have to say performance is pretty equal in all of those different situations. So I'm really, really happy with that. Could you use a primer shade on its own on the lid as a shadow? You most definitely can. And I actually think it's really beautiful to give your lid just a little bit of a faint pearlescence with a bright color eyeliner. You could even use one of the shadows as an eyeliner, but I think it's just really beautiful. Now the primer shades, just like so many of the topper shades we see in quads and Dior Quints and so forth, those are going to be fairly sheer and light. There are a few of these that are going to be more pigmented in some of the color stories than others, but for the most part, these are going to be a very sheer, light wash of color. You'll see a glint of silver, a glint of pink, a glint of gold, depending on the quad. So the glint that you see will match the color story in there. And out of the 7 I have, none of them are duplicates, but there are some that are fairly similar. As for the other shades in the quads, so the matte shades, I have to say, they are really very, very finely milled. All of the formulas actually are so finely milled that they are on the verge of becoming a cream product. So they're that thin, that finely milled, that they are almost to that creamy consistency there, yet they're still a powder. I find that to be really beautiful. This, in terms of the matte shadows, makes them really soft and easy to use. They blend out well. You don't get a lot of powder kick up using these products. There's a little bit, you know, they're not going to be a hard pan product. They are soft, but they have such a creamy consistency that the particles adhere to each other pretty well. So you're not getting a lot of powder kick up or dust in your pan or fallout on your face. So the mattes, again, super easy to blend out. And you can see that when I get to the demos, how easy they are to blend out. Even the deeper shades, you know, just going cautiously, these are probably some of the easiest eyeshadows I've ever worked with. As for the shimmers, the satins and so forth, these, again, are super finely milled, almost to the point of cream. They are so fine though that your glitter, your shimmer particles are not actual chunks of glitter. You can see, like, it's almost like when you see very, very tiny mica, like naturally in the earth, you just get that little tiny bit of glisten, but it's so small that you can't actually see the shiny particle. You just see a little bit of that subtle shimmer. And that's what I love about these shimmer shades here. So I think the satins here, you know, you've got some, perhaps it might appear to be a little bit more subtle than others, but in general, these are all going to be a subtle satin sheen to them. And they are just stunning. They definitely look very elevated. You have kind of this, you know, it catches the light a little bit without making it look sparkly or shiny. They're very sophisticated shimmers. So I have to say, I think they are gorgeous. It's a really easy formula to work with, very beautiful on the eyes. They feel silky, satiny on the skin. You know, they are a dream to work with. So are they worth the high price tag? You know, I would have to say that that is definitely a personal decision, and it depends what you're going for. You know, these shadows are definitely not going to be for those who want like in your face shine and sparkle. You're not going to get that from these products. The colors themselves, you know, you do have some more vibrant shades than others, but again, we're still looking at, in general, more subdued tones than something like you would get in a Pat McGrath palette, for example, or even some of the Natasha Denona palettes. So I would say that these palettes are definitely not for everyone. But if you are looking for a very, very high quality, easy to use eyeshadow formula, these are totally a dream. So in the live that I did, we talked about how they compare to Suku and Surratt shadows. Those are both some Japanese made eyeshadow brands as well. And I would say that these are probably closer to the Suku and the Surratt, they're fairly similar. The Surratt, I feel, you know, it's pretty consistent. The majority of those are mattes. We've got some satins in there, but they are going to be a firmer product in the pan. And these are going to be creamier than the Surratt. The Suku, it really depends on the formula. We do have some of the satin shades that we've gotten from Suku, some of like the duochromes and so forth that are very, very finely milled, very creamy to the touch. Those are closer to the Cle de Peau in texture. However, the Cle de Peau is still creamier than the Suku ones. But I would have to say that those would probably be the closest in texture to them. As for the cream primer shade, you know, when you first touch it, it just feels kind of like, you know, like a very thin, creamy silicone type texture. And then when you pat it on, if you then go and touch that eye or your skin, because you could use this on the face as a highlight as well, you'll see that it dries pretty instantly to a powder finish. You don't feel any tackiness from it at all. And it's a really beautiful product. So I don't have a comparison product for that because the majority of eye primers are either going to be a true silicone texture, which this is not, or something a little bit tackier. So this is kind of in between those. And I think it's just a really beautiful formula. So as you've been watching these demos here, you can see that these shadows are definitely really easy to apply. You can use them with a variety of brushes. You can use the applicators, which I did use the applicator for, I believe, the primer shade during the live, if you're interested in seeing that. But I would have to say that the primer shade, I think I like applying it to the lid best with a finger. I think, you know, you just get a really nice application with a finger or with a very, you know, a shader style brush that is firmly, densely packed. Because again, it is a cream product, so you want to be able to pick that up, smooth that out easily. However, even when I go in with a finger to put it on the lid, for the brow bone area, I still like to use a softer, fluffier brush to just kind of, you know, get just a little bit of product, get that shine, that glint. As for the mattes and the satin formulas, I think, you know, you can use any of your eye brushes for that. Obviously, with something that's a little bit more densely packed or something like undyed goat hair versus, you know, a soft squirrel hair, you know, you'll really see the difference in the hair types performing then. So if you use something like undyed goat hair or something firm and dense, you're going to get a lot more color payoff than you would with something softer like squirrel hair. With some eyeshadow formulas, that difference isn't as transparent, but with this one, I feel like you can definitely see the difference in how the brushes perform with these particular formulas because it is so soft and silky. So, you know, just something to note there. I have to say, they're gorgeous. These are a dream to work with. Let's go ahead and do some arm swatches of all of the shadows and then our comparisons. All right, so first up, we're looking at number 1, Sand Dune. And I do want to mention that these cases, they are fingerprint magnets, and they do come with one of the little Cle de Peau cases. I personally hate the fabric that they use on these. I feel it's very cheap, and I'd rather them just not include it at all. But if they were going to include one, I wish it was a nicer product. So let's look at Sand Dune, and we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 for all of the quads. So here's our first shade, and you can see that this is going to be a light, kind of more of like a golden champagne. It's definitely going to be a little bit warmer than the other shades in here. Next up, this is going to be more of a soft brown. It's not quite a taupe. There's not enough gray in there, but this is going to be a cooler tone, soft fawn brown. Our primer shade is actually going to have a glint of pink in there. So you can see it's a really soft pearlescent pink. And you can see that the primers, when you put them on, they are really hard to see. But let me just show you this real quickly. So just tap a little bit of this on. I do have highlight, so it's a little bit harder to see, but I think you can see a little bit of that difference. So let's see if you can... Well, here, I can do it on my nose because I don't have anything on my nose. But you can see the kind of effect that it has there, and it dries to a powder finish pretty quickly. And then our last shade here is going to be a rich cocoa brown, and I think it's beautiful. So this is technically a matte, and these top two are going to be satin shades. So this is number 1, Sand Dune. So let's take a look at number 2, Beach Pebbles. And this is going to be a warmer version of number 1. So this is right side up. So we are going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And our first shade here is going to be kind of your soft gold. And you can see compared to that in Sand Dune, this is going to be warmer, a little bit more yellow in there. Next up, we have this matte warm brown. So it's a soft, warm tone brown hue, a little beigey brown. Our primer shade here is going to have a glint of gold in there. And again, it's just a glint, so you really don't see too much color. It's really more like a little bit of a reflection there. And last up, we have a neutral brown, and this is going to be a satin finish. So this is number 1 and number 2. This one here is 3, Sun-Dried Driftwood. So first up, we have, it looks like it's going to be a matte. It's really going to be more of a satin matte. There is a faint bit of a sheen here, but this is going to be a peachy, dusty rose. So it's like a dusty rose, but there is a touch of peach in there. It's a little warmer than your traditional dusty rose. Followed by this more taupe shade. This is not a true taupe because it's really hard to see, but you can actually get a glint of a mauve in there. So it's not just your mix of brown and gray. There is a little bit of mauve mixed into that. And I think it makes the shade really special. Next up for our primer shade here, you can see when I put it on my finger, it looks like it has a silvery glint, but when you actually put it on the skin and shear it out, you have, again, a touch of mauve. Next, this last shade here is going to be kind of, it's the cross between a blackened raspberry or blackened blackberry and eggplant. So it's going to lean actually a little, it's pretty neutral, but you actually have a little more warmth in there than you might expect. It's still overall though a neutral shade. And you can see, depending on how the light hits, you can see glints of coolness from kind of that eggplant shade. And then when it turns a little bit more berryish, it looks a little bit warmer. So just something interesting. So this is 3, Sun-Dried Driftwood. And again, I think that's a really, really nice quad for like every day, but it's a little different from your traditional neutrals because you have those mauve tones in there. This one here is 4, Ocean Sunrise. This is what I have on my lids right now. Again, I have no idea how they chose this name for it. It does not make me think of an ocean sunrise. Our first shade here is kind of like an antique gold / moss. So you do have a hint, like there's a hint of that ochre color in there. And then next up, we have kind of a rich brown. This is a neutral brown, but it does have a touch of red in there. And it's a very, very beautiful, rich tone to it. Then our primer here, this one is going to be a bit more pigmented. and you can see that you have some gold in here. So this is going to be deeper. The golden tone is more of an antique gold versus more of a yellow shade. And then last up, we have kind of this really deep brown. It has some black in there. It's more of a deep espresso brown, and you can see that that is going to be cool in tone. So I think this is a really great, you know, neutral quad that is going to be on the more pigmented side. Again, that's what I have on my lids right now, and I would have to say it is a favorite. This one here is 10 Seagrass, and we're going to put these on the other side of my arm because I think for comparison swatches, it's going to be best if I can actually kind of put them on my hand. We can, you know, compare them all over. So we'll try that out. Let me know if you guys find that method to be useful. So, one thing I forgot to mention real quickly about number 4 here, these are pretty much all, we have a satin for sure with this deeper brown, but these two are more of a satin matte. So they're matte, but they're not, they do have a very faint bit of sheen to them, just a little subtle one. When we're looking here at 10 Seagrass, this is more of a true matte. We don't really have any shimmer in there at all. So that's going to be a little bit of the difference between them. So this is number 10 Seagrass, and you can see first shade up, this is going to be, you know, kind of like your quintessential color of algae. So, you know, seeing algae washed up on the seashore, that's what we have. Next up, this is going to be a satin, and this is more of your army green brown, like kind of camo shade. You can see that we have some brown in there, but it is going to be more of that like camo green shade to it, and it's definitely going to be a bit deeper, more pigmented. Now our primer shade for this again is going to be, this is one of the more pigmented ones. You can see this is going to be more of an antique gold. It does have some similarities here to the one in 4, but this is more yellow, a little bit more coppery bronzed kind of gold. So you've got more of that deeper tone to it, a little bit more yellowish orange hue to it, and it's more pigmented. It's going to be darker. And last up, we have more of a spruce green. So this is going to have blue hue to it, and there you go. So that is 10 Seagrass. This is number 11, Azure Blue Sea. And oh my goodness, this is a stunning quad. If you like blue eyeshadow, this is definitely one to get. You can see that we have this beautiful, soft, pale powder blue. It's deeper than Robin's Egg Blue. It's got a little more blue to it, and it's going to be a little bit deeper. It's kind of like that perfect shade of blue sky. You know, when you're outside, if you ever see it when it's like just that absolutely perfect clear color, that's what we have. And then we have more of this teal blue. And so we do have a touch of green in there to give you more of that teal shade, but it's still going to lean blue versus green. And then our primer shade here, this is going to be more of just a true ivory. And then last up, we have a deep blue navy shade. There is going to be a black base here, but it's definitely blue. When you use this, when you actually kind of, you know, blend it out and so forth, sometimes when you're working with deep blues like that, they'll blend out and it looks more like a black shadow by the time you're finished blending. That's not true with this. It's really more of a true navy. So I think that's something important to note because it is a pretty special shade. And number 12, Purple Ocean Twilight. And again, another favorite here. I love this lavender shade here. You can see that this is a true neutral lavender. You know, it's got some blue, it's got some pink. It's really right in the middle. A lot of times, most of the lavenders that we see, usually for the eyes, I would have to say that probably like more than half of them at least, probably I would say closer to 80% of them out of the ones that I've tried, they always lean more pink. This is really going to be pretty well balanced. And then we have a taupe shade. Again, we still have a glint of purple in there. It's actually like more of a pink purple kind of mixed in there. And then our primer shade here is going to be a soft pink. It's different from the pink in Sand Dune. This is going to be a little bit cooler in tone. Sand Dune is a little bit more of a peachier pink, a little warmer. And then our last shade here, we have a plum. And I mean, think of a true plum, the skin of a plum. That's what we have. You can see we've got a little bit of red tones in the base. This is just a stunning quad. And again, we've got, you know, no true solid mattes here. We've got some satin mattes and satin, but absolutely stunning. I have to say, all of these quads I picked up, I'm very happy with all of them. I think they are all stunning. Now, let's go ahead and move on to comparisons. Now, I haven't gotten to wear these on the eyes yet, but I have swatched them and touched the formula a bit. Oh my goodness, mine just fell out. So it looks like these are actually just glued in because you can see there's just glue here. So I will have to glue that one back in. But this is number 100 Stora Dolls, I believe. They don't have the actual name on here, just the numbers. So when I touch this, I mean, it is very smooth, silky, incredible feeling. I just swatched that with the wrong hand. I'm going to put them here so I can easily hold that up. Just take that hairband off. And yeah, I mean, this first shade here is very shimmery and it's very silky and smooth. Now you can see that the glitter particles are definitely going to be larger than those in the Cle de Peau. These are more sparkly. That's more of a true shimmer. Cle de Peau really goes more for a satin finish. Then this matte shade here, this matte ivory, it's very creamy to touch. That is going to be, you know, it's a little bit more putty like cream than the Cle de Peau, but I would say that they are kind of similar in texture. And then this brown here is also going to be a matte. Again, these are just very, very creamy. So these matte shades feel more like what the Cle de Peau feel like. And then last up, we have a satin, and this is going to be a softer brown. Again, very, very creamy as well. So I think this is definitely a great texture. This is priced lower than the Cle de Peau as well. So in comparison, this is YSL versus Cle de Peau, and you can see that the colors are pretty similar. I mean, you can see that this shade here is going to be a little bit cooler in tone. The brown, this is going to be a little bit lighter, and it's actually a bit more neutral in the YSL. The Cle de Peau is going to be a little bit cooler. And then we have an ivory, which we don't really have in here unless you count the primer. And then this shimmery shade is more tonally similar to the first shade here, but you can see obviously the finish is going to be quite different. And the one in the YSL is just a little bit warmer in tone. But overall, the colors are very, very similar. So I don't think that you need both. However, if it's a color story you use all the time, like I would do, then maybe you want both. I really love them. I mean, that's like one of my favorite color stories. So for me, I think it's worth it. But if you're trying to not duplicate too much, they're too close in my opinion. This is number 400 Babylone Roses. And let's go ahead and see how this one looks. Now, I have to say, like when I was looking at this one online, it was really hard to tell if it was more pink or more purple based off of swatches I saw on Instagram. So I wasn't sure, you know, which tones what the tones would be. It's definitely going to be more pink. However, it's not necessarily going to be an overly warm pink. I feel like this is going to be cooler in tone than many of the pink Chanel palettes that we have seen over the past couple of years. And you can see that we've got two shimmers, and then we have this deeper one is actually a satin matte, and then this is a matte. So you can see we've got tones of rose and mauve here. And I didn't purchase any of the Cle de Peau pink palettes. The closest I have would be 3 Sun-Dried Driftwood, but you can see that those tones don't really match up. Sorry. Let's see here. So this is with 4, 3, 2, 1. And here it is with the purple. And then this is number 910. And I think it's like Tuscadero Nights or something. I can't remember the name. But we have this really beautiful kind of silver shade here with a glint of blue. I mean, look at that. That's really beautiful. But just to show you, compared to the Azure Blue Sky, very, very different. Definitely much more silver versus the blue that we have. Then we have this like glittery gold. It's got more of a clear base. So it's more of a topper, but it's more pigmented than your traditional topper. Then we have this black, and you can see there is actually some shimmer in here. So it's a satin matte, because we do have a little bit of shimmer in this shade. And then last up, we have a matte peach. I think this is a really beautiful color story. Really, really like this. There is not one similar to this in the new Cle de Peau. I did talk about the old Cle de Peau formula in the live. Maybe this just doesn't work. But the old Cle de Peau formula, I feel like we do have a slightly more similar color story to that one. And I did swatch that in there. And we can look at that again when we do the YSL video. Moving on to Guerlain. Now, this one here is 940 Royal Jungle. And this is one of the permanent palettes. And this formula is different from what we have just seen in the new fall palettes. So the new fall palettes have more of your traditional eyeshadow formula, more of like your powder. Whereas these, some of them have more of a dry, grippy, putty texture to it. For example, this shade here really has a lot of grip. It performs just a little bit differently. So I just think that's interesting to note. You can see that the shades here look all very, very rich. These are going to be a little bit richer and on the eyes in general, but the one that this is closest to, in my opinion, is number 4, which again is what I have on my eyes. But these are going to give you a softer look. This can definitely be built up a little bit brighter. So one more time, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or not 5, 10, 11, and 12. So I think, again, this is going to be closest to number 4, but you can see that the colors are going to be richer. Obviously, we have kind of this orangey coppery shade here. Our black brown is similar. And then the rich brown, you can see that the one in Royal Jungle is actually cooler, deeper in tone. And instead of this, we have more of this like golden champagne shade. It's really more topper-esque. Now, another one of the permanent Guerlain quads. This is number 11, Imperial Moon. And this is probably my favorite of them. We have this rich black. We have more of a silvery shade here. And you can see this actually feels very metallic. There is grittiness. You can feel the glitter. Then we have this like matte peach. And then we have kind of this soft, satiny pink with a touch of taupe. And so I think it's a really gorgeous color story. This partly reminds me of the YSL, the 910 in Tuscadero Nights, if that's the right name. But you can see here, as we're going through, our closest match is going to be number 3, Sun-Dried Driftwood, but it is very different. So we have kind of a similar idea with having like the peach and the taupey shade, but the peach is warmer in the Guerlain. The taupe, however, is cooler in the Guerlain. And then we have the silver and the black, which doesn't really match up with any of the Cle de Peau. This is number 360, Mystic Peacock. So I did want to look at the blue and the teal in here with number 11, Azure Blue C, but I figure let's just swatch the whole thing, see if any of the other shades are similar. You can see that this brown here is a nice rich brown. It is going to have that putty-like texture. Then we have kind of this metallic orange copper. You can see that the blue and the copper here are pretty vibrant. And then we have this teal shade here, which is going to be a bit more green than those in the Azure Blue Sea. Yeah, it's more blue than anything in Seagrass. So you can see that our blue is more cobalt. So overall, it's not really a great match with any of those. This brown, it's going to be closest to the brown in number 4, but you can see it's not quite as deep. We don't have as much black in there. And it is slightly cooler in tone and a little bit deeper than the darkest shade in number 1. Now, this is one of the new Guerlain Fall Quads. This is 258 Wild Nudes. This is going to be more of just a traditional, regular powder eyeshadow formula. Nothing really special about this formula, in my opinion. And we have, just kind of your nude palette here. We do have a pop of a peachy pink, more of a dusty rose pink with some peach. And those are mattes. And then this one here is a satin. So you can see overall we're looking at kind of a warmer brown palette. And compared to number 1, you can see that this in Guerlain is significantly warmer. But again, we still have kind of a similar concept with having a bit of pink in there because this taupe has some pink. So there's a little bit of similarity. It's definitely not quite as golden as Beach Pebbles. Sun-Dried Driftwood, again, is going to be more taupey. And here's number 4, which again is going to just be a pretty different color story. So it's actually kind of closest to number 1, but it's significantly warmer and peachier than the shadows in number 1 from Cle de Peau. And this is 910 Undressed Brown, another one of the other Guerlain Fall Quads. So we start off kind of with this orangey shade here. We don't have anything like that in the Cle de Peau. Next we have this champagne, and you can see there's a hint of a peachy pink hue to that. So it's not going to be a straight up champagne or ivory. And then we have a matte brown. It's a pretty true brown. And again, just like the 258 Wild Nudes, this is going to be just your regular eyeshadow formula. And then we have this satin brown, which has like a hint of pink in there. So compared to number 1, 2, 3, 4, I would have to say that our browns, this deeper brown is probably closest to this one here in number 4. But again, they're not dupes. We don't have anything like the orange. This pinky champagne really doesn't match. And this reddish brown shade here at the end, it's more red than that in 3, Sun-Dried Driftwood, which really is more mauve. So just to finish up the comparisons there. So that would be the Guerlain Quads. And then I do want to take a look at one more Guerlain, and then we're going to move on to Chanel. So this is the limited edition Guerlain Summer Jean palette. So this is 518. This does have a special formula, more like the one in the permanent line. So we've got this beautiful bright cobalt blue. We have kind of this warm brown putty-like product here, and you can see that you definitely have those golden undertones in here. Then we have this lavender shade. So I wanted to take a look at this lavender with the lavender in 12, and then we have a gold, which is not going to be like anything in the Cle de Peau. So first up, the blue, you can see is significantly different than anything in Azure Blue Sea. And then the lavender here. Take a look at that lavender with this. Oh gosh, here we go. Let me go ahead and swatch the Cle de Peau lavender with it. So here's the Cle de Peau lavender, and you can see that the Cle de Peau has a bit more blue tone to it, whereas the Guerlain has more pink. So that's going to be our main difference there. While still looking at the purples, I wanted to take a look at the Chanel. This was number 378, Douceur et Serenité. And this came out, was this last summer? This might be last summer. First up, we have kind of this dusty taupe. There's a hint of mauve in there. Then we have a charcoal gray. And you can see that one can go pretty light if you wanted to. Next, we have a purple. And this is going to be different from the purples in number 12. But I just wanted to share this because there are some similarities. And then we have this berry shade. So what I thought was most similar was the fact that we have this lavender and this berry. And you can see here that our berry in the Chanel is more pink. It's definitely more pink, whereas the Cle de Peau has more purple in it. Our lighter purple here is going to be significantly warmer. And let me go ahead and just swatch those right next to it so you can kind of see. So this here is the Cle de Peau purple. You can see it's going to be lighter, more lavender. And then the berry from Cle de Peau, you can see is much deeper, more eggplant. And those are really going to be your more similar shades there. We're just going to take a look at the Chanel tweeds. So let's start with number 2, Tweed Porpora. And this is more, it's more like red-based purples, pink-based, and warmer in tone than I had expected when I originally purchased it. You can see we actually have more rosy tones than purple tones. And this is Tweed Porpora. So you can see here compared to the number 12 from Cle de Peau, it's significantly warmer, significantly pinker. It actually has tones that go a little bit better with 3, Sun-Dried Driftwood. However, I do think that this will be most similar to one of the quads that I did not pick up from Cle de Peau. So yeah, these are really going to be more roses. Next, let's look at 4. This is Brun et Rose from the Tweed collection. And we're going to see how this compares with number 1. So first up, we have kind of this soft, it's more of a warmer taupe. You can see some golden undertones in it, followed by a kind of a soft, warm brown. Then we have this glittery, it's kind of like a warm pinky peach. And then we have a matte cocoa brown. So that's Tweed Brun et Rose. And let's just see how that compares here. You can see that we've got more of these. This is Seagrass. We have 11, 12. This one here is going to be number 1, Sand Dune. And you can see, looking at this, that Sand Dune, we have more of this golden shade here, whereas we've got more like peachy tones in the Chanel. Our browns are fairly similar, but the Chanel deepest brown is a little bit cooler. Our second shade here is going to be a little bit warmer. We don't really have as much of a pink hue there. And yeah, so they are definitely similar. I do think, though, that the YSL palette is closer to the Cle de Peau than this Chanel is. This is definitely going to be a little bit warmer overall than the Cle de Peau. So let's just go ahead and look at the Cle de Peau real quickly with that. So we've got our lightest shades here. You can see already right off the bat, I'm going to skip the primer, but you can see that they are going to be cooler in tone. And while we've got that up, let me just go ahead. I'll just swatch the YSL with that as well, so we can kind of sandwich those. I'll put the YSL at the top. And so you can see how those go with that. Let me swatch that down with the Cle de Peau as well, so we can just kind of see how similar those are. All right, so we've got our YSL with our Cle de Peau, and you can see that those are definitely significantly closer. Next, let's look at number 1, Tweed Cuivre, and I love this Chanel quad. I might actually like this one a little bit more than the Tweed Brun et Rose because that did end up being a bit warmer than I had expected. I thought it was going to be more like the Cle de Peau, and again, it's just slightly warmer. But this is number 1 in the Tweed series. And I think you've got these beautiful rich browns, these coppery tones. The closest is going to be number 4, but you can see, obviously this is going to be much more subdued. Similar color story, but much more subdued. We don't have the sparkle. We don't have the richness in color. The browns, this first brown is going to be cooler. The second brown is going to be warmer. So this is going to be kind of in between. This is kind of like a replacement for that golden shade here, but you can see we've got a bit of green in there, and then our deepest brown does not quite match. This has more black. So similar, that's going to be our closest out of the Cle de Peau that I have. So that's going to be it for my comparisons. I hope this was helpful. Let's just go through these one more time. We have 1, sand dune, 2, beach pebbles, 3, sun-dried driftwood, 4, ocean sunrise. Then on this side, we have 10, seagrass, 11, azure blue sea, and 12, purple ocean twilight or ocean purple twilight. Forget which way it went. But I think they are all stunning. I love all of the quads I picked up. These are definitely a luxury formula. You can feel it. It performs like one. So it definitely comes with a hefty price tag. I have to admit, I was thinking that they would be around $100 with the case, but I did not think they would actually go over the $100 mark, but they did. So, they will be available at other retailers soon. Right now, they are exclusive to Cle de Peau. I have no regrets about the ones that I've purchased personally. I think they are stunning. And if you go to the Cle de Peau website and you're looking at the listing for the shades with the case, if you scroll to the bottom of that, they have the quads broken out into which ones are best for cool, neutral, and warm undertones. And they do have an issue changing the picture. They still do. It's been days and they still haven't fixed this. But on the page with the cases, if you're clicking on the different quads, you can't change the picture of the actual quad. If you go to the refill page though, and you look at them there, you can change and look at all of the different pictures. For some reason, there's just an issue with the website that hasn't been fixed quite yet on that. So I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, I have additional comparisons in the live. I'll leave that linked down below. And thank you so much for all of your support. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful day.